Hey, what's up? Well, what a difference a day makes. You see my hair? While it looks better than it did in February, I'm not quite so scalped, so to speak. It is short. And, once again, it's short. Do I prefer it the way it was yesterday? Probably, but I know that it will grow out. And that if I don't get it cut as often as I do, I will have long hair, and that is something I don't want. Well, I know I had to practically whisper in my last video, and I really don't like that. But unfortunately, that is what happens when I make videos in the space room, and that's why I'm always in the laundry room, because my dad is too close to the space room for me to take a risk and talk louder, okay? Well, I feel like I didn't do a good job with my last video, so I'll make this kind of a part 2. And I want to take it in a different direction. I want to title it The Purpose of Boy Dolls. And in my last video, I called it Boy Dolls Are Not for Boy Children. And, I showed some dolls from years ago, and I went into great detail about how it's just a shame what I've had to resort to over the years, in converting girl dolls into boy dolls. And it really upset my mom, each time she'd find out about it. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of the fact that as a grown adult, I had so much time on my hands that the best thing I could think to do was to change the perceived gender of a doll. Like as if anyone would believe that they actually manufactured that many boy dolls. And, part of it, I guess you could say, is ignorance and, just not, not, not fully understanding and or not accepting. Sorry, I'm always getting choked. Not fully understanding and or not accepting the reason why. It's more the non-acceptance than anything. This is why it is such a big deal. I don't have a cold right now, but when on the rare occasion that I do get one, the coughing is probably the scariest and the worst symptom. I don't know why I'm coughing right now, other than perhaps I just got choked. But it's mainly the lack of acceptance. I have a hard time and a good reason not to accept why there are so few male dolls in comparison to female dolls. And, why it's controversial to even create male dolls, no matter what kind they are, and who they're marketed to. There's always something controversial about them. If they have anatomically correct genitals, of course, that's, a huge thing that people make a big deal about, pun intended, despite the genitals being so small, in proportion to the body, that a real person might be borderline intersexed if he had that type of genitals, even at birth. So, parents make a big deal about that. Should a doll ever have what? They can make all the drinking wet babies in the world that pee like females, but, it's like they think the world's going to end if a little girl sees something that looks like the male genitalia. So, that's controversial. And then if they don't have genitals, which, normally they don't, if people make fun of, they poke fun of that. He doesn't have genitals, so he's not a real man. Well, duh, he's a freaking doll. People make fun of that. And, then, even if they do kind of censor the doll, which is what I suggest. I mean, I don't see any reason in the world why a male doll in particular should ever have to be stripped down to less than tidy whities of sort. You know what I'm saying? I don't see any reason in the world why, in the nudist form, a male doll needs to not even have underwear. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you bought paper dolls from the store, they would have default underwear, and the boys would have some sort of briefs or boxers. So I don't see the need to have a male doll that's either anatomically correct or can be made fun of for not having one, so to speak. They should have briefs. So, but it's still controversial. It's like people find a reason to object to it, even if they do everything right in that regard. Like even if it's a doll, like with a built-in pair of jeans, it's just part of the body, blue legs and a blue butt, like Woody on Toy Story. People find it controversial to have any male doll, even if you call it an action figure, even no matter what, it's like, people always find fault with it somehow. They even find fault with the girl dolls, but for other reasons, not because they're girls. But it's like there's just, I don't know what it is, people just have something against, any form of the male image, being made into something small and plastic. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get that. But anyway, I've just always had, I've never been able to accept that. My mom, I've literally like been yelled at almost to the point of crying at the table by my mom. Most dolls are not boy dolls. Get over it. And I'm like, well, of course, most of them are not, of course not. But I mean, even if they made a line wherein no doll whatsoever was a boy, and you absolutely needed and wanted a boy, you could have a makeshift one. And that's what I was trying to say. And she's like, you would destroy the doll. No, it wouldn't. It's art. I see it as art, not destruction. I see it as alchemy, not destruction. You know what I'm saying? I see it as taking something and making it better. You're improving it if you do it right. And it's like it just really, and I don't understand that, why she is so attached to, basically, I mean, she doesn't put into these words, I have these words for it, but patriarchy and, you know what I'm saying, the things that benefit white males in general, the capitalist. And I mean, she's just, like I said, both of my parents are what I consider alt-right or far-right. And I consider myself politically to be center-right. I agree with them, or at least pretend to on most things, but, past a certain point, I just cannot get on board, like with the pro-life conservatives or anti-choice, and I just cannot past a certain point accept conservatism because it doesn't benefit me, because it has hurt me in so many ways that perhaps they're oblivious to or don't care about. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I do not understand, why, why the objection, to male dolls, whether they're manufactured or makeshift in my case. I don't get it, because I think that male dolls have a purpose. It isn't sexual, it isn't, but the purpose that I see in them, they're not for boys to play with, as I've established. I would never in a million years, I could have 1,000 dolls, 500 boys and 500 girls, and I would never, ever give a single one of my dolls to a little boy to play with. I really wouldn't give a doll to a girl to play with either. But I guess, I'd be willing to negotiate with some of my least favorite girls, for a price. Like if a little girl's daddy wanted to pay me for one of my female dolls, then I'd be willing to bargain, you know what I'm saying, for a certain amount of money. But with the boy dolls, especially the ones that I've made, I mean, there is like, I mean, you could never convince me unless I put it up for sale, which I have sold a few and I feel badly about it, but I just have too many. But I would never look at a boy doll and say, this would be a good toy for a child with a you know what. Wow. Among all his trashy toy trucks and, beat up toys that he treats like garbage, this beautiful little doll ought to be among them. Yeah, I would never think that. Not even my action figures. You know what I'm saying now? Like if I have too many, yeah, I guess, just like the girl dolls, I might be willing to, if someone could convince me to let go of some of my action figures for a certain amount of money, a certain price, high enough, I probably would let them go. Begrudgingly, I guess. But hopefully not to a little boy, but an adult collector. But what I'm saying is, I do not make or look upon boy dolls as something that a boy child can or should play with. You know what I'm saying? I would never. I'm so glad I don't have any kids, because if I had a little boy, I mean, the last thing I would ever want to do is sacrifice some of my dolls to his disgusting hands. But the value I see in male dolls, other than, people thinking I live vicariously through them, you know what I'm saying? I don't have the courage to transition or whatever, or go against my parents and actually say that I'm male or something, because I'm not. And so people think I live vicariously through them, but that is not the case. The purpose I see for male dolls, why they're so important to have, and why it makes me so angry that more of them don't exist, or that they don't have more of them at the store than they do. And all the understanding of the economic reasons cannot erase these feelings, because I see them as valuable because they show the contrast. You can't have something without its opposite. Okay, you can't really have darkness without the concept of light, or coldness without the concept of heat. You know what I'm saying? Night is the absence of day, not the presence of the moon. Night is when you don't have the sun in the sky. So it's almost like something has to have an opposite in order to be defined. You know what I'm saying? And so if everybody were feminine, I don't like, dolls being this female only planet where males simply don't exist, and certainly not as children. I hate that. That's basically Lesbos Island. That's where the word lesbian came from. And so not only, well, because 50% of the world is male, roughly, and you're actually, if anything, you're more likely to conceive a male child because the Y swims faster, and that's one of the many reasons why I don't ever want to have children. I mean, not that I want a girl, but a boy is especially bad, considering how immature they are, and, they get in even more trouble than a girl when they're little. And, but, because the Y sperm swim a little faster, you're more likely to conceive a male. And it's almost made that way so that, to balance the fact that they die younger than females. Because you need to start off with more males in order to have, almost the same number when they're of reproductive age. You know what I'm saying? So you cannot, because, 50% of the world is male, roughly, and, you cannot have like I've stated before, I mean, you can't have something without its opposite. And so, like, if everybody is a feminine, frilly, girly girl, then, how is that special? You know what I'm saying? Like, if everyone were beautiful, there were no ugly people in the world, then how would it be special if you're pretty? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's special because not everybody is pretty. Like, I mean, something is only special if the opposite exists in abundance. Um, if everybody was a talented musician, then, how would they be special? I guess they'd all play differently. But, it's special because most people don't have that gift. You know what I'm saying? And so, in order for girls to be special, for being pretty and feminine or whatnot, I mean, the opposite needs to exist and needs to exist in abundance. Not just, one male and a dozen females. Because, I mean, blue eyes wouldn't be special if everyone on the planet had them. And, so, I like male dolls because it's like they show that, the girls look more feminine because of the existence of something that isn't, something like them that isn't. So it's like you need that contrast, you need that counterpart, that balance. And the other reason, I like male dolls is because, well, because I really just, like I stated before, I don't like the fact that what people refuse to acknowledge or understand is that Barbie and similar dolls were not invented for little girls to play with. Little girls didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what I would like? And draw on a sheet of paper, I would like you to invent a doll like this, like a 3D paper doll made out of plastic. Well, no, little girls didn't envision that. It was men who wanted to visualize a woman unclothed, you know what I'm saying? And they tried to clean it up and make it a little more wholesome, by market in a way that could be marketed to kids. But the original intent of such dolls was that they were a mini blow up doll, a mini sex doll. And, I mean, Barbie wasn't an astronaut, she wasn't a school teacher, she wasn't a secretary, she wasn't a flight attendant. She was a prostitute of sorts. She was a mini sex doll that men could undress and imagine, a real woman nude. And so, to me, that is just sick. The very purpose. I mean, there's a reason I always felt somewhat uneasy, looking at the doll aisle. But that's why. She's always dressed or presented in a controversial way every year because it never was something that originated, it wasn't some Baptist little girl and her mom that came up with the idea, of a woman that could be undressed. No, it was some sick man, that wanted a mini sex doll. And that's why, there are few male dolls because it's like, aside from children, who would they be marketed to? Think about it. I mean, and it's pretty obvious when you look at Ken. Who besides a little girl would normally want a nude male doll? You know what I'm saying? And I think you could probably imagine. And so, that's why he looks so effeminate and so sissified, despite having muscle. And so, that's why it bothers me, the dearth of male dolls, the lack of male dolls, especially in the cheaper stores, the cheaper lines, especially, below a certain price. I mean, you're not going to have any male dolls. The top of the line one might have one male if you're lucky, certainly one at the adult size, and perhaps, You know, if they're younger ages, there might be one boy version of the girls. But, you know, and I really don't like, you know, this overabundance of females in the doll world because it's a reminder of, you know, what the doll was originally intended to be, and it wasn't a toy for a little girl. You know, some man didn't just sit around and think, you know, little girls need something to play with that's different from what their brothers have. I'm going to invent something for little girls to play with. No, that's not how it works. It's like men invent things and then women and children find use for them. You know, they find a way to use them, you know, or change them to fit their needs for why they like them. So, you know, and you know, that's why, you know, I was looking into this 12 dancing princess thing because see, the thing about the dolls is that I never actually cared. It's like that for so many things. It's like I don't buy a doll of a character because I'm into that show necessarily or because I care about the movie. So the 12 dancing princess thing, I had no interest whatsoever. I didn't even know about that movie or DVD, and it is crap. It is crap. I cannot tolerate watching it. It's so silly. But, you know, it's just what you would typically find. It's like a male writer, basically, and, you know, conveniently, the only male characters in the story are the oldest main character, you know, the father, no mother, interestingly. You know, they don't want elderly women involved in these stories, so they kill the mother somehow. You know, they just put it like she's dead. And so it's this one man that's raising a dozen girls that she gave him, and they don't say how the mother died. Um, just that she's not in the picture. So the only male characters in the story are their father and their love interest. So, you know, conveniently, they have men in the most respectable, you know, adult like roles. But yet, all the young characters, you know, the children, um, the teenagers, you know, they're all girls. You know, all the daughters are, well, it's all daughters, no sons. And so I like male dolls because they show the contrast, you know, between masculinity and femininity. Because, I mean, if everyone is feminine, you know, how is it any different? You know, it's just the norm. And so, like, the other thing I like it is it kind of messes up, to put it nicely, the idea of, you know, like dolls being just, well, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't really matter, you know, to guys that think of them as something to fantasize about, but it's almost like it kind of puts someone in the way of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, um, you know, now I'm sure you could say that Ken is like a substitute. He's like a self-insert. That's why he's normally a white man. And occasionally they have a black version, but not much else, because there was a black version of each of these dolls that I'm talking about. But, you know, other than Ken, there just aren't a whole lot of other males, which indicates that, you know, like adult males are actually, you know, we're actually, other than children, you know, and their moms, they're actually who these dolls are being sold to. You know, it's not little girls. I mean, because they would play with anything. You know, they would play with a box and pretend like it's their house if that's all they had to play with. They could make a toy out of anything at that age. But it's really adult men that fantasize about young girls that are the true demographic, you know, that they're trying to, you know, that's who's behind the scenes. That's who's actually designing these dolls and deciding which ones are going to sell and which ones aren't. So, you know, oh, and before I end this video, I like to show a picture of, I put new hair ties on Hadley, the blonde one. You know, it's just something about blonde or lighter hair. You know, I took the brunette twin and made her into a boy, but the blonde, I just couldn't part with those beautiful golden ringlets on Hadley. And that name Isla, it's supposed to be Isla, I think. Yeah. So from Isla to Ivan, I just like Ivan so much better because I mean that's just a stupid name. Why did one of them have to have the Spanish word for island as her name, whereas the other twin, is Hadley, which, is completely different. That's an English name. It's like, really? It's so stupid, their reasoning for giving these characters their names. But anyway, I have no use for the 12 Dancing Princess. Probably shouldn't have bought those dolls. But I do like to have boy dolls because I like to mess up, this, you know, this idea that dolls they're all girls and, um, and I just hate it. I just hate it because it just makes it so plainly obvious that they were never invented by or for little girls in the first place. So go ahead and post that video and the pictures.